Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's talk. A few weeks ago, I released a short video entitled, "Is the West Collapsing?" in which I discussed how our institutions, such as our universities and our governments, have become corrupted. I spoke about how our economic system appears to be being used against us and not for our advantage, and that this economic system seems to have altered our sense of purpose and meaning. What I'm saying is that as humans, our guiding principles have been altered by this incorrect view of economics. Now, when we talk about our attitudes or our guiding principles as human beings, we're really talking about philosophy. And in broad terms, philosophy is the activity people undertake when they seek to understand the fundamental truths about themselves and the world that we live in, our relationships with the world and with each other. In the West, with this 24-hour marketing and the financial power available to political parties, and politics is only about influence, it's not about the truth. Through the current economic system, this political power is also available to big medical corporations, big food producers, and large corporations of every type. And all these corporations are now entities who lobby politicians to further their financial stranglehold over the public. The financial stranglehold is almost 100% pushed out at you through mainstream media. That is radio, TV, newspapers, magazines, and now also some social media platforms as well. They understand the propensity for humans to mimic those around them, and also our propensity to want to be part of a group or tribe. Today, I want to look a little deeper into these influences and discuss how they've contributed to the increasing polarization in our society. I also want to discuss in philosophical terms a way in which we can reduce this polarization and a better way for us to understand who and what we are as humans. I think that the only way to move forward as a cohesive society is to get a better understanding of how we came to be here and what is a common meaning and purpose that we can collectively hold on to. One that allows for different worldviews or religious views, but also will prevent negative economic influences such as what is playing out in front of us now, and what I think is the biggest threat to mankind, and that's global capitalism. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't value capitalism, I do. It was capitalism that lifted humanity out of abject poverty. But the definition of capitalism is that the trading of goods and services in the hands of private owners. However, global capitalism is now an international political system, which is all about the coercion of humans. And if you think that the COVID pandemic was an accidental act of nature rather than an exercise in international global capitalism and coercion, well then you're hooked onto mainstream media and you need to broaden your intellectual horizons. And that's part of the reason I'm making this video today, to help you with that. You see, it is inevitable that an economic system that begins with humans attributing value to objects or activities, i.e. if someone gathers food, that this act means that they get something in return. If left unchecked, this system will evolve into what we have now. And I'm talking about these billionaires and globalists meeting at Davos and constructing ways in which they can manipulate us using economics. And they do it by indoctrinating us to value things that really don't have value. Diamonds, for instance. Diamonds are not rare. They can even be manufactured. But through a cartel of entities and misinformation, people are still willing to pay very big money for diamonds. Now, once money or representations of economic activity, whether it's coins, notes, digits on a computer screen, are introduced into a society, and you don't introduce a measure to control that money, there is no doubt it will flow in one direction. Now, I think that there are methods that we can introduce to control that flow of money, and I've spoke about them in other presentations. However, when I speak about those methods, because it requires us to look at economics through a different lens, the current so-called experts won't have a bar of it. They will accuse me of spreading misinformation, and everyone will think that they deserve their PhDs. But that's for another time, and I'll continue with today's theme because it's a big one and it's important. As humans, we are part of an ever-expanding universe that began about 13.8 billion years ago. And about 4.5 billion years ago, Earth was formed. Initially, there was no life at all on Earth. How the universe was formed and how life began is the subject of religion and science. And for a long time, there has been a debate about the nature of God between religions and scientists. However, to me, they are one and the same. I have a hypothesis that delves very deeply into the subject that I'm not going to go into here. But to understand what we are and why we are here, it is useful to zoom right out and, with our powers of observation, describe what actually has happened here on Earth. About 3.8 billion years ago, a single biological cell appeared on Earth, and we're not sure how it appeared, but it did. That cell was capable of self-replication. The first one even has a name, Luca, or the last universal common ancestor. All life on Earth, including us, can be traced back to that single cell. These cells were similar to the bacteria that operate our bodies today. And about 1.5 billion years ago, these self-replicating cells transformed into multicellular life. From our zoomed right out position, if we sped the whole process of evolution up, without discussing who or what was responsible for it, we would see a plethora of more and more complex life coming into and going out of existence. These various life forms would spread over the entire Earth's surface as a symbiotic system. Everything is part of everything else, and this is true right throughout our universe. We would see that these life forms becoming more and more conscious over time. We would see the emergence of human-like species appear, made up of 37.2 trillion of these cells, and eventually, through exploration and experimentation, they would populate the entire Earth's surface. They adapt to their surroundings and learn to live in bigger and bigger groups. Eventually, we see rocket ships heading out into space as they begin to explore the universe. So the question of who we are and why we're here is answerable. We are a complex life form designed through our shared experience, freedoms, and will to take life out into the universe. By any means of observation, this life system is beautiful. It is the single most important thing it could possibly be. And if I quickly refer back to my hypothesis for a moment, and without getting too technical, Nobel Prize winner and physicist Sir Roger Penrose has recently calculated that our universe is cyclic in nature, and these cycles of expansion and instantaneous collapse to a singularity are about 36 billion years long. When we begin to understand what we are capable of, and I mean we are capable of everything and anything, we'll begin to understand that perhaps, just perhaps, allowing these powerful corporations and politicians to usurp this divine process of freedom and human expression of life is all very wrong indeed. It's about time that we took back our freedoms again, and it's time that we begin to ignore their presence. And to do that, we need to look inwards. We need to reject globalism and look to provide for ourselves again. We need to build our own homes using our own resources, make our own furniture, grow our own food, and share the wonder of being humans again. Now, this is going to require you to reject the Jacinda Ardern global capitalism campaign that's in front of us right now. In fact, it will require you to reject all of the current political parties in New Zealand. It will require you to reject the anti-abundance messaging, climate change alarmism, and the race-baiting narrative of all of our political parties. I don't mean that we do it quickly or violently. I mean that we just start walking in a new direction and have new conversations based on human flourishing. I've been Andy Oakley.